I noticed something pretty funny, and it really does open you up to how gag orientated Frankie is, and you can take it as a bit of foreshadowing for what's to come from Lucy. But in chapter 372, we are in the in-between state of leaving Water 7 and going to Ennis Lobby, and we are on the C train at this point, and this is a fight between Frankie and Nero. Nero was the untalented guy that gets off by Lucy shortly after this, right? And being the most untalented member of the CP9, he can't use some techniques. In this chapter, we find out that he can't use the finger pistol technique, or Shigan, which is just stabbing the opposition with superhuman strength, right, with your index finger. So, he has 2 pistols to make up for this. But the funny part about this is that he's fighting someone who literally can use a finger pistol technique, because Frankie turns around, flips the tip of his index finger up, and shoots a bullet out of his finger. And in the way that he's doing this, it looks like the Shigan technique. It looks like the Shigan technique, but it's a literal finger pistol. And the technique is called ouchie finger, or ouch finger in some translations. So I found that super funny that he literally has a finger pistol fighting someone who can't use finger pistol. That's funny. That in itself is just funny. On top of that, this is also the chapter in which we get to see the vulnerability of Frankie, that his back is fully biological and it's only the front of his body that is completely cybernetic. It's made of steel. This is funny too, because another technique of the CP9 is called Tekai, or Iron Body. And what's funny about that is that every time you see Iron Body, don't quote me on every time, but all the times that at least I remember and can bring up, they get attacked from the front. No one ever gets attacked from the back using Iron Body. So this too is very funny, because Frankie technically is using Iron Body all the time, because the front of his body is literally made of iron. He's always using Iron Body because he's made of iron. That's so funny to me. So in both situations, I guess you could say Frankie's a bit of a parody on what the CP9 can do. And the reason why this is foreshadowing is because later on, I mean way later, like during the Luffy versus Lucy fight, it is shown that finger pistol can be shot out like an actual gun, because Lucy has an attack literally called Flying Finger Pistol Pick, or Flying Finger Pistol Sting, which he uses in his hybrid state, and it's a actual projectile version of finger pistol. It's not just a simple poke like they were during like the start of the technique being shown like in the later stages of Water 7 and whatnot. So that's really funny, that you could say in Frankie having a literal gun in his finger, he was foreshadowing that, yeah, the finger pistol technique can actually act like a gun and fire off a bullet of sorts, even though it's like a compressed air blast. But still, very interesting. And then that takes us through the rest of the story. We have characters like Stussy using the flying finger pistol technique, and more importantly, you have Who's Who using a technique called Fang Gun, which was really sick. Also, what's funny about this, and this is not really a part of the 6 powers, but I keep confusing it with the 6 powers because 6 powers users use this. Frankie parodies Life Return. Life Return, once again, not a part of the 6 powers. It's just that 6 powers users use Life Return, notably Kumadori and Rob Lucci. Kumadori uses this on his hair, and Lucci uses Life Return to make his hybrid state slimmer and more aerodynamic. So, in being a parody of Life Return, is very funny because Frankie, once he's fed things that aren't cola and he puts it in his weird fridge gut, his hair changes shape, and that kind of dictates what the set is going to be based on the beverage that is now in his refrigerator gut. What's funny about this is that when the Life Return is first shown off by Kumadori, he is trapped in a refrigerator. He gets fat from the food, but then he's able to go back into his muscular physique. So it's funny that Life Return was shown off with a user of the technique being trapped within a refrigerator, and Frankie literally has a refrigerator in his gut, which dictates the power and abilities of the functions of his body. So that's weird. What's further weird about this is that, like I mentioned, the main use of Life Return was basically with Kumadori for the most part, as that becomes the crux of his entire set, as controlling his hair is a big part of how he fights. Franky, both in the pre-time skip and the post-time skip, has a significant hair gag. His hair in the pre-time skip is depicted by what beverage was put into his gut, and then that becomes just a normal function of his in the post-time skip, as one can press his nose in like a button and his hair just changes shape. Does this do anything for Franky? No, but that's why it's a parody, and that's why it's funny. On top of that, and I'm cheating, and this is stretching the taffy very, very thin, but in a way, you could say that Franky has parodied Moonwalk or Geppo and Rokuogun or Six King Gun, because Coup de Vent is just a big air pressure blast, while Rokuogun or Six King Gun is a big shockwave blast that looks like a compressed air cannon blast. To top things off, both of these techniques require both of the user's hands to be pressed together in a particular way, and both of these moves are finishing moves, because Coup de Vent was always presented as a big finishing move. He even used this on Fukuro, and then Luffy used Six King Gun to apparently finish off Luffy, even though it didn't work. But to continue. Now, when we talk about Moonwalk, well, Coup de Boo technically is a parody of Moonwalk or Geppo, because he has used that to fly. During the Fukuro fight, he inflated his butt cheeks and let out a big old fart that propelled him out of the water and up to where Fukuro was. So yeah, Franky can fly. And I can't remember which movie this is. I want to say it's Film Gold, but in Film Gold, I want to say, I'll put a screenshot of it here, whatever movie it is, but he uses Coup de Boo again in the post-time skip technically to fly. I think it was during the weird bake heist section of Film Gold. But yeah, he uses Coup de Boo to fly there too. So yeah, flying farts. Very cool. But that's all I have for you today. Franky is kind of a parody of the CP9. And I think that's pretty neat. But give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Paula Pete What's It?